What's up guys, it's lostgriff, and dude, I've been wanting to make a video like this for so long and understand entirely that I'm coming at this from a very, I would say, unbiased perspective, okay? And just to be clear with you guys, I'm an 18-year-old, I am a Zoomer, I have, a decent knowledge in popular media nowadays, I have a decent knowledge in, like some of the older movies, especially, stuff like Goonies, because my parents, would always have it on, so I kind of know, the popular 80s 90s movies, at least some of them, right? So I kind of know what out of those pool of movies are owned by WB and what movies I would and wouldn't think would belong in a game like Multiversus. So let's just get straight to the point. Something I really wanted to talk about, and something I think was interesting to have a discussion in a comment section, because a lot of people seem to claim that it's a non-problem, but I do think it is a little bit of an issue, especially after this clip was stated recently.
As big as it used to be. Obviously, for the player base and consoles, you can't really tell. But I'll tell you right now, viewership for Multiversus is at an all-time low. I'll tell you that right now. I think the inclusion of characters like Gizmo and Black Adam, while they're unique for those player bases, didn't appeal to the mass player bases, I would say. When LeBron James came out, that's all the internet was talking about.
After I heard this clip from Hungry Rocks, I knew I had to make this video. So, did characters like Gizmo and Stripe really belong in Multiverses? And what's the issue with people who really dislike the prospect of characters from movies like the Goonies or characters from the movie Gremlins coming into Multiverses? I'll state my personal issues with it, but I'll also state a lot of the rebuttals people have, and I kind of want you guys to make up your own opinion rather than just listen to mine. I would rather you guys not just think that I have one standpoint on this, because I am probably leaning more towards that they shouldn't be in the game, but at the same time, everybody has their own personal biases and what they would like to see, and overall, you would just have to kind of look at it from a very objective standpoint. And another thing I also want to preface as well is I don't think bringing a specific character will save the game. For example, if they randomly decide to add everybody's top 10 characters of the game over the next few months, I don't think that would fix the game, because I do think there's a lot of fundamental issues that are making people quit more than the character choices. So do I think this is the biggest issue? No, but I think if they want to continue to add characters every 2-3 weeks, even every month, I think that the characters should have that kind of appeal that even if it doesn't bring people back, even if true fixes won't bring people back, at least there will be people coming back for characters, trying out the new character, giving their opinions, reviewing it, stuff like that. I do think there is something to be said about the fact that there will be at least temporary value from that. And also just more diversity in terms of the game, and having more characters from a specific genre or a specific, age of media is awesome. So what's the tweet that fired up Twitter? Nikki Licks, who actually is a fellow Finn player, loves to put his Zoomer takes on Twitter. He previously said, quote, something along the lines of, oh, Gizmo and Stripe have no place in Multiverses, right? And he personally, just like me, has seen Gremlins. And obviously, it's not a bad movie. It's a good movie. I'm not here to hate on Gremlins as a movie, of course not. But he also repeated with this, new leak that was found that apparently the Goonies are a string and might end up being in Multiverses some way or another, whether it be ring out effect, which if it ends up being a ring out effect, then, he's kind of gonna look kind of stupid for this take. But if the leak does end up being the beginning of a Goonies character being put into development, or at least the very, very early stages, I will say I'm just as disappointed as he is, right? And it has nothing to do with the movie of Goonies. It has nothing to do with, the type of movie it is at all. And there is definitely a nostalgia factor for a lot of the, veteran game developers. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people that are developing the front end of Multiverses are actually, long-term veteran game developers, like Tony, for example, who actually worked at Riot Games for League of Legends and a few other games, and to name a few. So he has worked in multiple different game studios, and of course that means he's an older guy. I mean, Tony the GOAT, right? So what's the issue, right? What's the issue with having Goonies or Gremlins representatives coming into Multiverses? Well, there's one big issue. A lot of the people that would recognize and be excited about these characters are not the intended audience of a game like, let's say, Smash, Brawlhalla, or Multiverses. Platform fighters historically have a player base from the very young ages of about, let's say, 11, 12, 13, all the way up to probably mid-20s at the most. So a lot of these people who are nostalgic about, maybe the 80s characters coming into the game aren't playing the game itself. And even the people who are kind of well, there could have been probably better picks from Warner Brothers' amazing selection of 80s and 90s movies out there. I mean, even if you look at Goonies and Gremlins and look at the source material, I feel like the only reason why you would add a character like this that's so niche if they have the potential to make it a really amazing kit. For example, I'm totally cool with going and digging deep for kits and picking a less popular character because you know that the kit that they are made with will be awesome. And of course, that's totally cool. But the problem is that Stripe is the worst designed character to come to Multiversus so far. Many people argue Jake, but I genuinely think it's Stripe. And I think that is, first of all, because of lack of balance in the character, which is a whole different issue, but also simply because of his kit being kind of underwhelming. I mean, there's nothing really crazy about what Stripe does that really kind of gives him the charm that every other character has in this game, or uniqueness at that. And that's kind of a shame, and I think it largely has something to do with the fact that adding a character like Gizmo, who is kind of the same Mogwai, birth or whatever you want to call it, right? Despite the fact that they are different and eternal enemies or whatever, right? There's something to be said about the fact that having Gizmo and Stripe not fight together, but having Gizmo maybe turn into Stripe somehow, maybe as a comeback mechanic, and fusing them into one character would have been a lot better than having them as separate. Having two Gremlins, kind of the same
caliber,
that's like having Jake and then Jake's son as a character, or like something like that. Let's say like Jake had like an evil son or something, right? What if Jake literally had just like his evil son or like evil brother as like a character? Like that just wouldn't make sense. And while you may think that's like a little bit different, considering the fact that Gizmo's the main protagonist and Stripe's the main antagonist, you can kind of see my point. Like there doesn't really leave much space for a bunch of moveset diversity, and as much as there isn't villains in the game right now, I think there was much better ways to go about it. So overall, I think they could have done better with Gremlins and maybe just made Stripe be kind of a comeback mechanic. Like maybe, Gizmo got desperate, so he brought Stripe. Maybe he ate some food after 12 and because like he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna die or whatever. I might just do it so I can be more evil or be more strong or whatever, right? Just as kind of like, even though that's Gizmo's, that's definitely not a part of like what his character is. It would be a really cool mechanic to include both Stripe and Gizmo and find some way around that. Of course, I'm not, a character developer. There probably is a better excuse you could make for Gizmo and Stripe fighting with each other. But again, I've only seen the first movie, and again, I'm not a character developer, right? So when it comes to Goonies, why is it such an issue that the Goonies could come to Multiversus? Well, the target audience just, again, doesn't really fit the shoe, right? If you think about it, if we look at Cartoon Network reps right now, which is probably the main thing that came to mind whenever people thought about a game like Multiversus, there really is not much to be said. I mean, of course, we've had some, quote-unquote leaks about Samurai Jack perhaps coming to the game, which is another Cartoon Network that people are excited about. But besides that, we don't really have any info on maybe a Gumball representative or even the most obvious one, a regular show or Ben 10 representative, which is really disappointing because I think that's in a lot of people's top 10 picks. And seeing the main target audience that get neglected due to a developer's preference is good for them, and I'm glad that they're enjoying the characters they're making, and shout out to them for doing what they want to do despite the community's backlash. But I still think that, like, on some hand, you do really got to appeal to your target audience. And even though there is more stuff coming out for, let's say, Black Adam, there was a movie that came out recently that didn't perform super well, but still, regardless, was very popular in the media. Gremlins getting something new in terms of the source material sometime soon, which honestly I didn't even know about, considering the fact that there's not really that much hype beyond the movie to this day. It just feels like a complete neglection of the target audience. So again, I want to make this clear. I do think it's okay to have a good niche pick every once in a while. I don't think there's anything wrong with characters like Piranha Plant coming to the game in terms of Smash. But I just think appealing to your audience and really trying to create some of the most mainstream characters and put them in the game first that'll really pull people in. Picks like Ben 10, literally any rep from regular show considering how amazing that character cast is. There was also a lot of DC and Looney Tunes characters lacking. Like not having Daffy in the same game as Bugs, but having Taz and Marvin in the same game as Bugs. What? I just feel like the character pool was not planned out very well and not released in the right order. I feel like if you're making a game like this from the ground up, you really want to pull from the top of the bag before you start pulling from the middle or bottom of the bag. And I think that's where the problem comes in with characters like Gizmo and Stripe coming to the game, and now potentially a character from a movie like the Goonies. Not to mention, I don't think movies are nearly as good whenever it comes to moveset design, because whenever you're watching a show like Adventure Time, or again, like I've mentioned a lot of times, regular show or Ben 10, there's so much source material because of the long-standing fan base and also the content behind it that I feel like it leaves a lot more you know, flexibility in terms of skins, in terms of design, and just overall bringing more fan bases to a game like Multiversus. So to kind of state my overarching point, the main issue is, first, not appealing to the overall fan base, and second, I feel like this goes along with not just the Goonies and Gremlins, but also just in the character picks in general so far. I think a lot of times they're picking from the middle of the bag more than the top of the bag whenever it comes to character picks. For example, I don't think Taz is in anybody's top 50 requested characters, or at least in most people, but I think maybe if you wanted to say, you know, between 50 and 100, he would be in there. And again, Flash or the Arrow not being in before a character like Black Adam? What? Moreover, Flash. I definitely feel like that's one of the most iconic DC characters, no question. Way over Black Adam. So yeah, this is kind of just a video I really wanted to make to kind of sum up my opinions on it. And again, I don't want to make anybody swayed or like their characters any less. Because again, I do believe that there's a lot of potential in this game. I really also believe that adding more niche characters that intrinsically pull in more people who, you know, maybe don't really have much representation in the media for their favorite characters, there is something to be said about the value of that, and I agree with that entirely. But there's also something to be said about the fact that Ben 10 players really can't even go in this game and play the character that basically was one of the most recognizable characters in the early 2010s, and still is to this day. What I'm saying is, maybe until we get to the 30 to 40 count, we probably shouldn't be pulling from more rare IPs. And I know probably WB has a lot more to do with this than Multiversus does, and if so, I apologize. You know, if you're a dev out there and you're watching this, you're like, there's not really much I can do, then I mean, I get that entirely, and I'm not trying to say, you know, WB has to be attacked or blamed for this, because I think this is their own decision, that it's their game. But this is my input on the problem and why I think it could create a potential issue in the future. Considering how much a character like LeBron James blew up the internet, I still would like to hear that kind of conversation be put around Multiverses instead of conversations about what could have been. Anyway, guys, what do you guys think? Please leave your comments below. I really want to hear your guys' opinion on this take. I think I summed up me and other Zoomers pretty well in what we think about this situation. I know there is definitely some younger people out there who are fans of like 80s and 90s movies, and I get that entirely, and that's cool. That's cool with me. I'm just saying I think there's a lot of people who kind of stand with my same point, who are around my age range, who know that I'm the target audience, and I know that, you know, most people in my target audience were pretty frustrated about this. I mean, even some of my personal friends were like, yo, this is really disappointing. You know, I really do feel like they should add more characters that are more well known and not like completely unknown to the target audience most of the time. So yeah, what do you guys think about this? Do the Goonies have a place in Multiverses as of right now, or do you think that should be in a year from now or less? What do you guys think? Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.